February 2016. The fluorescent lights hummed across the empty corridors of Bangladesh Bank. On the 10th floor, a single printer blinked green in the dark. One light, one heartbeat. It had refused to work for 3 days. Zuber bin Huda, an assistant systems officer in charge of maintaining the bank's internal communications, rubbed his temples. His job was to keep the SWIFT network terminals running smoothly, the system through which the bank sent money to the rest of the world. He was used to small glitches, paper jams, power blips, but this printer had gone quiet without reason. It was Saturday morning, the end of a long week, and the building was nearly silent. Zuber pressed the power button again. The machine clicked, coughed once, then began to spit paper. One page, then another, then dozens more. At first it looked like routine logs, but each sheet carried transfer orders in amounts that made his throat tighten. 40 million, 72 million, 200 million. The names meant nothing. The pattern made everything worse. By the time the printer stopped, the floor was littered with paper. Zuber picked up one sheet, his fingers trembling. The total printed near the bottom read, $951 million US. Someone had tried to move almost the entire foreign reserve account that Bangladesh Bank kept with the Federal Reserve in New York. No alarms had sounded. No passwords had been denied. Every transfer bore the correct authorization codes. It was as if the bank itself had willingly signed its fortune away. That day marked the moment the modern world learned that the most dangerous robberies don't happen with guns. They happen with patience, precision, and trust. How they settled in. The intruders had already been inside the network for more than a year. It began quietly, sometime around mid-January of the previous year. An email arrived at the bank addressed to Human Resources. The subject line was harmless. Application for IT position. Attached was a resume, zipped for convenience. Someone opened it. One click, one mistake. The malware slipped into the network like fog under a door. The hackers didn't start stealing. They listened. They watched traffic. They built a map. Who logged in where, which machines connected to the SWIFT terminal, which users had clearance to authorize transfers. They discovered the printer linked to those terminals and realized that every outgoing SWIFT message also produced a hard copy confirmation. Those papers were what managers checked, so the hackers rewrote the printer driver. When they needed silence, it would simply stop printing. They were careful. They hid their files inside normal operating processes, renaming malicious code as legitimate software updates. They built persistence mechanisms that could survive system reboots and antivirus scans. Nothing they did screamed intrusion. It whispered legitimacy. Weeks turned into months. They collected valid credentials, escalated privileges, and learned the rhythm of an institution that thought it was secure. They also learned something else: time. Bangladesh's weekend was Friday and Saturday. The Fed's was Saturday and Sunday. In the Philippines, banks closed for the Chinese New Year. If they struck late on a Thursday night in Dhaka, they could create a global vacuum lasting 4 days. 4 days when phone calls would go unanswered and confirmations would time out. They rehearsed small movements, tiny dummy transfers, harmless queries. Each time they checked response delays, verifying that the timing worked. By the time they were ready, they knew the network better than many of the bank's own employees. The night they pulled the lever. Thursday evening, early February. The city outside slowed into its weekend rhythm. Street vendors packing up, traffic thinning. Inside the marble halls of Bangladesh Bank, only security guards and a few night operators remained. At 8:36 p.m., deep inside the compromised SWIFT terminal, the attackers executed their plan. 35 payment orders flashed across the network. Each looked perfectly ordinary. Each was addressed to the Federal Reserve in New York. Together, they demanded the transfer of nearly $1 billion from Bangladesh's account. The orders named dozens of recipients, companies and foundations that didn't exist, bank accounts in the Philippines and Sri Lanka created months earlier and left to sit quietly until this night. In New York, the Fed systems flagged a few irregularities. Some messages referenced Jupiter Street, which matched the name of a sanctioned shipping firm. Automated systems held those for manual review. But 5 of the requests appeared flawless and went through. The Fed sent confirmation queries back to Dhaka as protocol required. Those messages should have printed immediately beside Zuber's desk. But the printer was mute. The confirmation files sat in the queue, unprinted and unseen. Across the globe, time did its work. Bangladesh was heading into Friday, a weekend. The Fed staff were wrapping up their own Friday. And in the Philippines, banks were preparing for a long holiday. Between those 3 clocks lay the perfect void. Inside that void, money began to move. 5 transactions cleared, totaling $81 million US. The remaining 30 orders, worth hundreds of millions more, were delayed for manual checks. When the hackers noticed the first sign of review requests from New York, they knew they had to disappear. At 3:59 in the morning, they deleted evidence, wiped logs, and cut their connections. The intrusion that had lasted more than a year ended in silence. When dawn broke over Dhaka, the building looked normal. The printer light blinked lazily, hiding the truth for another day. The route the money took. By the following evening, the stolen money had crossed oceans. Most landed in accounts at RCBC Bank's Jupiter Street branch in Manila. 4 accounts opened 9 months earlier by fictitious clients who had deposited small sums to appear legitimate. From there, the funds split. Some were wired into a currency exchange company named Philrim. There, they were converted into pesos, then withdrawn in thick stacks of cash, so much that the handlers measured it by weight, nearly 500 kilograms of bills. On Sunday morning, couriers carried the money into Manila's casinos. The VIP rooms had no reporting obligations under the Philippines' money laundering laws at the time. Perfect cover. The players arrived promptly each day at 8 a.m., played baccarat against one another until nearly noon, then walked out with chips that could be cashed as clean winnings. Elsewhere, another transfer worth $20 million headed toward a small Sri Lankan charity called the Shalika Foundation. But fate intervened through a simple human imperfection. The hackers misspelled the name. 1 extra letter, Shalikika. That single typo tripped a fraud detection filter and froze the funds. By the time the attackers realized, the bank's compliance team had already contacted Dhaka. That typo would save $20 million and expose the trail. Back in Bangladesh, Zuber finally restarted the malfunctioning printer on Saturday morning. The machine roared, spewing out the backlog of confirmation sheets. The staff who read them felt the blood drain from their faces. They phoned New York. They emailed every contact they could find. But in the Fed's offices, it was still the weekend. Empty desks, blinking monitors, unanswered phones. By Monday, the Fed reopened. But the Philippines was now celebrating Chinese New Year. Another silence. 4 days in which hundreds of millions could vanish without trace. Investigators moved fast once the alarm reached them, but cash moves faster than bureaucracy. The casinos kept their doors open. By the time authorities acted, $31 million had already been flown out of the country, rumored to have traveled with a Chinese businessman on a private jet to Macau. Another $50 million flowed through gambling tables and vanished into the noise of chips and champagne. When the Anti-Money Laundering Council finally intervened, it seized only a fraction, around $2 million in chips and some local accounts. The gamblers, polite and calm, were questioned and released. The total recovery worldwide would amount to about $38 million. The rest, nearly 2/3 of what cleared, dissolved into shadows. Why this changed everything. The deeper investigators dug, the stranger it became. Digital forensics teams from Bangladesh, the Philippines, and the United States pieced together a trail of code fragments, command and control servers, and reused malware libraries. The style matched a group already notorious for another headline-making operation, the Sony Pictures hack of 2014. The same servers, the same spear phishing method, the same obfuscation tricks. The name surfaced again and again, the Lazarus Group, a collective link to North Korean state interests. They had transformed cyber intrusion into an instrument of survival. Every stolen dollar could fund weapons, research, or diplomatic leverage under sanctions. The Bangladesh bank heist wasn't just a theft, it was state-level fundraising dressed as crime. When the story broke publicly, it sent shockwaves through the banking world. The idea that a central bank could be robbed electronically seemed impossible until it happened. The heist forced a reckoning. SWIFT hardened its security standards, introducing two-factor authentication, dual authorization, and new real-time monitoring. Central banks installed redundant printers that cross-checked each other's logs. The Federal Reserve introduced multi-channel verification for unusual requests. Bangladesh Bank, meanwhile, became a case study in how trust can be weaponized. Its governor resigned. Several officials were removed. The institution that controlled the lifeblood of a nation suddenly found itself explaining how a handful of emails had outsmarted the global financial system. But beyond policy and headlines lay something deeper, a change in psychology. The heist rewired the world's sense of security. Every network administrator learned that no perimeter is impenetrable, and every banker learned that silence is suspicious. And still, somewhere far away, the Lazarus operators watched it all unfold. They hadn't taken their full billion, but they had proven a point. They had shown that with patience, precision, and timing, the line between cybercrime and geopolitics could disappear. Imagine what would have happened if they had waited one more hour, just one, to approve the Fed's pending queries. They might have walked away with nearly $1 billion, enough to destabilize a nation where most citizens earn less than $3,000 a year. It was luck, not defense, that stopped them. A typo, a blinking printer, a chain of coincidences too fragile to depend on twice. Today, the 10th floor office has new machines, new locks, new rules. But sometimes, late in the evening, someone notices that same printer light blinking softly in the corner and remembers the weekend when a nation almost lost its fortune to a quiet group of ghosts. Because in this story, the villain wasn't malware or code, it was complacency. And the weapon wasn't a gun, it was trust.